Welcome back. In this session, I want to help you sidestep the common pitfalls of blended families. Now, there's a lot. If you're dating, go slow, right? If you run too quickly into marriage, you can run off and leave your kids, and then you'll regret it. Travel with them and move toward them while you're dating. Don't run away from them. Once you do get married, don't trade one family for the other. There are way too many parents who just start over with a new family as if they don't have any obligations or responsibilities to their children from a previous family. Or sometimes the step-parent is putting pressure on the biological parent to spend all of their time in the new home. No, you have responsibilities and your children need you. So if you have unhooked at this point, let me encourage you, it's time to re-engage. Another thought is this: give permission to sadness. It's very important in dealing with grief and loss to give permission to the expressions of it. Loss, as I've said, is enduring in your family. You might as well help people talk about it. Bring it up at strategic points or when you see sadness at work. So for example, a mom or a stepdad who says to a child, hey, your birthday's coming up, and I know you're not gonna get to see your dad. I'm sorry about that. I know that really stinks for you. That simple acknowledgement, right, engages them in their sadness. Now they can share it with you. You've just given them permission to talk about it. They can share it with you, you're sharing it with them. They don't have to withdraw from you in secret hiding of their suffering, of their sadness. That just creates emotional distance, right? You want to move toward them in that sadness. Another idea is model for them grieving and what it looks like. Have grace for one another in your loss. When you talk about your sadness, you give them words. You give them some adult perspective. You help put feelings on what it is, and you clearly make the statement, grief is okay here. Now, if it's their grief and not yours, it was their loss, but you don't necessarily feel it. You might be the step-parent and it's not your sadness. Help them find ways of expressing it. Again, taking them to the cemetery or looking at pictures of a deceased parent and engaging them in dialogue and listening to stories and say, tell me more about that. Loss is just always under the surface. Every once in a while, help them bring it out and process it. Another idea is for step-parents specifically, don't take loss and its expressions personally. This is easier said than done. Don't take it personally. Loss creates a fear in kids of more loss. Like they've already been through hard things, they don't want to go through more. And sometimes that fear expresses itself as resistance to you, to new relationships with step-parent, step-siblings, whoever it might be. What you see on the outside is anger or them being withdrawn or resistant, but what's motivating it on the inside is sadness. So try to respond to both of those things. So it might sound like this: hey, I don't appreciate your tone. Please don't talk to me that way. Now, I'm thinking that if I were in your shoes, not getting to see my dad on my birthday, I might be a little snippy too. I'm wondering, are you missing your dad? See, what you're doing is you're responding to the behavioral expression on the outside. You're setting a boundary around anger. You're letting them know it's not okay to treat you that way. But at the same time, you're putting words on and identifying with what's going on under the surface. You're helping them give expression to that and eventually deal with that. You're hoping to help them manage their anger and their sadness. And when you engage them around this, it helps them understand how to do it better for themselves. A fifth idea, this one's for biological parents: don't get paralyzed by your kids and their sadness. A lot of biological parents feel a lot of guilt over what their kids have been through. That's quite understandable. But guilt over your kid's pain, if it paralyzes you, that's not a good thing. Yes, you're gonna have empathy and compassion for your child and what they've been through, but don't let that get the best of you and paralyze you as a parent. Sometimes parents just don't follow through. They back away from setting hard boundaries, saying no, disappointing their child when they need to put parameters on life, or going soft on the expectations on their child. They do that because they feel guilty about what their child has experienced. That doesn't help your kid. That won't make up for their pain, and it won't help them cope with their pain in the present. As a matter of fact, it makes it harder to be a parent at that point because they learn that anger and misbehavior gets them what they want. And next thing you know, they can divide and conquer you and the step-parent. Not a good idea. Don't be paralyzed by your pain. Now, this point brings me to the second pitfall that I want to talk about, and it's this: not working well as a parent and step-parent team. I got to tell you, I think this is the most common pitfall, and it has the widest and the deepest hole that couples fall into, and that really erodes blended family living. You really have to work well at this, and here's why. Because everything parenting ultimately impacts your marriage. And since your family rises and falls on the health of your marriage, parenting can either unravel or build up your entire family. So let's talk through a few key principles. But as a couple or as a group, let me encourage you, go farther with this discussion. Keep reading and keep discussing what you learn together so that you can be a better parenting team. I want to share with you what I call the 6 P's of step parenting, the 6 core principles of step parenting well. Number 1, partner. Listen, commitment is everything to your marriage. Now, biological parents, there's another element in this partnering aspect for you. Recognize that the step parent, your spouse, can't find their place in the home without your support. You're the one that insists that your children respect your spouse. You set up the step parent for success or failure. I gotta tell you, you're the one who communicates that expectation to your kids. And one of the ways you do that is what we call passing power to the step parent. Think of it this way. If you've ever said to your children, look, when you go to school, you need to obey your teacher. If you've ever said to your kids, look, the babysitter's here, we're going out for the evening, she's in charge, that's passing power. You're communicating an expectation to your children that they need to listen to and obey and respect the leadership of these stand-in parents, or however you want to think of them. They have some authority in your life. Now, you're not saying the babysitter is your new mom. You are not saying the teacher at school is your new dad. You're not saying that at all. There's a big difference between those two things. You're just creating an expectation that they respect the step parent. That is so very important. That's you partnering with your spouse and elevating their status. You can't have unity in your parenting unless you do that type of thing. Because remember this, when it comes to parenting, united you stand, but divided, they fall. It's our kids who suffer the consequences of us not being united. Kirk and Lori weren't united in the beginning.
My parenting style was more based on rules and structure. I came in, this is how it's going to be, with a whole lot of expectations. My big thing was wanting the children to help out the parents.
Me and my stepdad definitely butt heads a lot. It felt very much like he was trying to come in here and just be sort of like a patriarch or my dad or something, and I didn't like having someone else telling me what to do.
And Sarah's grades were struggling. I started to ask Lori to speak into that situation and pass out some consequences, and to make sure that she was following through. Lori initially thought it was very harsh, very extreme.
Because she would come to me and I would give permission without talking to him. It was difficult because I had felt like I was a single parent for 7 years and I did everything. I would negatively interpret what he was saying as him saying that I was a bad parent. Instead, I was more like, okay, well, I still have to co-parent over here with my ex-husband, and we need to be on the same page as far as if there's okay, you don't get your phone for 2 weeks, or you don't get to go to out for Halloween this year because you are failing this class and you've not been doing your homework.
There have been times where I felt disrespected and even left out to dry or left in the lurch by Lori. And it's at that point that I need to just remember that she's for me. She's not against me. And I need to understand that there's going to be some things that she wants to do that is for the benefit and blesses all of us.
Okay, the second P, the second principle, is pursue. Pursue a relationship with the kids as a step-parent. In pursuing them, you lead by speaking the languages of love. Dr. Gary Chapman, who wrote the 5 Love Languages. He and I have written a book together where we've integrated the 5 love languages and what it looks like to live that out in a blended family situation. So we suggest that, all things being equal, a step-parent go through a process of working into the love languages. The biological parent can speak the child's primary love language from day one. Always have, always will. They have the ability to do that. But as a step-parent, you start with acts of service, giving gifts, words of affirmation. Think about it. I mean, everybody loves these, right? You could do those with your neighbor. You can do that with a new coworker. Give them a compliment or give them a little gift of some, write them a note. Little things like that. Everybody is open to that, right? That's a good introduction. Then you build up toward quality time and physical touch. In other words, start with the least intrusive love languages and move toward the more intimate ones. Now, all of this pursuit has to be done at the 3rd P, pace. You have to do it at the pace of your stepchildren. Pace is really about respecting the child's timing. And it's influenced by their past, by their present, what's going on in their heart and mind. Different kids are going to have different motivations to love and receive your love. Some are wide open from day one, others less so. Still others don't really have a need for you in their life. That's fine that you're there, but they don't really need to let you into the special places into their heart. You have to listen to their cues and act accordingly. You have to try to match that. So for example, regarding time and how much attention you give them, take what you can get. Now this can be really frustrating. If they spend a lot of time in another home, for example, or they're adults and with their own life and their own family to care for, or if they just don't make themselves available to you very much, it can be really frustrating because here you're trying to pursue them, but their pace is to remain pretty standoffish and distant. You have to respect that. You want to be intentional and you want to continue to try to press forward a little bit, but you can't push really hard or it's going to work against you. Now, remember, I said that adults are often highly motivated to grow a relationship, and kids vary tremendously in terms of their level of motivation. That's why you need the 4th P, patience. Eagerness, I think, is a culprit for a lot of step-parents. In fact, I think a lot of evil stepmothers are really just overly eager stepmoms who are trying to make everything right for this child and are desperate for the child to love and accept them. Your heart is big, and that's a really good thing, but you're just trying a little too hard, and it comes off in a way that's a little overbearing. You gotta be patient with this process. There's a lot of moving parts to blended families and a kid's heart and how they allow you to enter into that space. Most of those moving parts you don't control. You could have a good relationship with 2 stepkids and a troubled relationship with a 3rd stepchild. Cut yourself a break. Try to be patient. Okay, the 5th P is persistence, the principle of persistence. Sometimes the ambiguity of step-parenting overwhelms step-parents. You're excited to combine your families and you're motivated to be a blessing in your stepkid's life, but they just don't need you in that way. Or maybe they're closed towards you. It can be discouraging, and the temptation is to give up. Well, I want you to be stubborn, stubbornly persistent. Not a bull in a china closet, just determined to keep pressing in. It takes the average step family many years to find their family identity. It just takes time in the crock pot. Some step parents find the journey a difficult one. Others, not so much. It's rather easy. Either way, don't give up, stay persistent, and pray. That's the 6th principle. The 6th P is prayer. Both of you, biological parent, step parent, have to constantly bathe this process in prayer. You need God's wisdom to know when to zig or when to zag, when to back up and start again. The point is this, the first 5 Ps give you a general map, okay? But they don't give you every answer to every question. You have to trust God to intervene, to teach you, to make the path straight for your future.